puppies and kittens. This is Aron Ra, and I have an old friend on tonight who has recently gotten a degree in, well, what are the specific degree? What would you call the degree, Lorence?
Well, I got a few. I have a degree in religious studies, a degree in classics, and then an associate's in Greek language. So those are my qualifications as of right now.
So
and this
I've
is my
known
cat
this guy
Rocky.
for a decade. I've known this guy for a decade or so, and I remember his arguments on the Bible. I mean, he was running a show out of his basement, which was recently flooded, I understand, and just everything taken away. But he was running. He had a huge studio in the basement, and I got to go see it, and that was kind of impressive. All the microphones and cameras and everything. But he was with a couple of his friends who were running Bible study every Sunday, like Atheist Bible study or Atheist Bible school,
Atheist
something
Sunday
like that.
School.
Atheist Sunday School. Thank you. And it inspired me to do the Blasphemers Bible. And when I was going to do Blasphemers Bible, I called Lorence. I said, "I'm not going to do the show unless I have you on," and he agreed to be on. But there was a conversation that we had some years ago when I said, "Man, you know so much, but the problem is it doesn't matter what you say because nobody's going to care unless you've got the letters behind your name. You have to have the degrees to have any cred at all." Well, now I'm introducing my friend Lorence Yufa, who is now a Bible scholar.
I'm getting closer to that. Yeah, I'm on my way to that. I think I'm going to reserve that title for at least when I have a master's.
Okay, well, you have some humility, sir, and I respect that. But all you needed was the degree.
Right,
you already got to claim this one, and so you do. And he knows his chops. So what I would like, I would love to have somebody call in if you believe in the Bible, right? And you want to argue the specifics with a Bible scholar, please do. I mean, here's one. Let me just bring up some things, common misconceptions about the Bible. Because my friend Lorence Yufa, Bible scholar, you had to learn Koine Greek, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I had to learn all kinds of ancient Greek in multiple dialects, right? So I initially learned with mostly Attic Greek. So that was the Greek that was in Athens. And it is the form of Greek that we have the most evidence of, or I shouldn't say the most evidence of. We have quite a lot of texts in Attic Greek, Koine as well, and that was mostly preserved through biblical stuff anyways. But aside from that, Doric, Ionic, those were some other dialects that we had to learn. But there's not really that much of a difference. There are a few spelling differences, maybe a couple constructions that are slightly different grammatically, but nothing too significant. So it's not like a completely different language.
Well, what I wanted to ask you about that is, I've been told by theologians that pistis reveals that the meaning of faith is that it is not a belief for which there is no evidence, but rather that it is an evidence-based belief. And that I don't understand what pistis is. Could you help us out in understanding what that means?
I can do my best. So Greek is a very dynamic language. There are a lot of diverse meanings for a lot of words. You can take a look at any Greek lexicon, and the word for logos which is word, can also mean argument. It can mean any block of text. It can mean a whole lot of stuff, logos. And for a word like pistis, faith is how it's generally translated. You can also understand it as trust. That is another way to understand it. There's also a pretty common phrase in Attic Greek, pistis ek biou, which means proof from life. And in that case, pistis ek biou, this cat is just, just will not let me talk. All right. Yeah, so the phrase pistis ek biou means proof from life, but it mostly means like anecdotal evidence. is what it would mean in that context. So in that case, it would just mean the reason that you believe something. It can mean a lot of things, but none of the meanings imply that it's evidence-based at all.
So one of the arguments that I got into with one of these theologians was that they told me that they have evidence. They have subjective evidence. And I had to explain to him that subjective evidence, by definition, is only evidence to you, not to me or anyone else. So, sorry, that by definition, that does not count. And so that sounds like what you're talking about now. So let me bring up a couple of others. Common misconceptions about the Bible. Since I don't expect that anybody's going to call 720-619-2288 to argue with me or with Lorence. If you believe in the Bible, you believe in God, you want to show how I'm wrong or my friend is wrong about anything, call in, because you guys are keyboard warriors. But what's wrong with your voice? Let's hear it. 720-619-2288. That number again, 720-619-2288. Let me also remind you that tomorrow, September 27th at 3 p.m. Central Time, watch Justin from Deconstruction Zone and Jimmy Snow and Arden Hart each give 20-minute talks. Patrons of the $15 or higher tier will get access to the live event, and patrons of the $5 and up tier will be able to watch the recording of the event the next day. So, on the issue of common misconceptions about the Bible, Lorence, first one, the Bible is the Word of God.
Oh, yeah, that's a fun one. It obviously isn't. There are... If it was the Word of God, you would expect there to be no contradictions. There are. You would expect there to be univocality, where they all agree or point towards the same belief or set of beliefs, but we can see even theologically they disagree with each other often. I'm sure you have heard about original sin. There is a passage in Ezekiel that is very much against the idea of original sin. Well, some verses support it, other ones do not. So even on a theological level, there's disagreement between these. So I would say that the idea that the Bible is, let's say, inspired by God comes from, I forget the exact book. I think it's in one of the pastorals, but the idea was that Scripture is God-breathed, which is what the word literally means, and it's usually translated as inspired. The issue with that is that God-breathed can also mean life-giving. So people have probably been understanding it wrong for a hell of a long time. There was a recent monograph that came out maybe, I want to say 5-10 years ago. I don't remember the exact date of the book. I'll have to check on it. But the author argued that inspired there, the word that we translate as inspired, should mean life-giving. So God-breathed is to be interpreted as life-giving. Okay, we can kind of look at how Adam was, right, when he was breathed life into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's the same idea there.
All right, so we actually have a caller. Outstanding. So we will be talking with Maureen in Canada.
Hello.
Maureen, can you hear us? Hi.
Yeah, can you hear
me?
Hello,
Maureen.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Hello.
yes. Can you ask the question, please?
Okay, so this is kind of basic. Why was the Bible written? Like, what was the purpose? Was there a certain group that decided what it would be, and now it's developed into, like, everybody uses it for their own purposes? But why would it be written in the first place?
Well, it's important to remember that the Bible isn't just one book, right? It's a whole lot of books written over about 1,000-year period. And all the authors wrote for different purposes. There are a lot of genres in the Bible. So, for example, we have something that we now just call mythology. And that shouldn't be a dirty word to anyone. There's nothing about mythology that implies that it's bad or anything like that. So we take a look at like the primeval history, for example, where you have stories going from Adam and Eve to the Tower of Babel. And then you have other sections of the Bible that are far closer to what we would consider history. For example, the Deuteronomistic history. There are different genres and texts written by a slew of different authors over time. They were expanded upon, and we usually would call them additions or redactions. And each text has its own story. So there wouldn't be necessarily one reason. But when it comes to how, the Bible is the way it is today, that was over a long canonization process. There's a very good book that I often recommend from Lee Martin MacDonald called The Biblical Canon, where he examines all of the references that we have to canonical books and what made something canon. Why was it important to be considered scripture, and then what canonization meant after that. So it really depends on what you're looking at, which book specifically, to actually understand why something was written. But they were often addressing problems in their own little world, the problems that were affecting them and their communities. For example, sorry, go ahead, Maureen.
No, I guess another question is kind of like the Old Testament and the New Testament being put together. They seem so completely like different to me, like different purposes, reasons for why they wrote them and why they would put together. Was that just Christianity put them together for a reason, or?
Yeah, so the early Christians would not have viewed themselves as a separate group. They considered themselves Jewish. That's why so many proof texts that are used in the New Testament are, the vast majority of them are from the Old Testament, or what we now consider the Old Testament. So they did not view themselves as this totally separate thing. They viewed themselves as an extension of the correct form of Judaism. That's how they would put it. So they consider all of these canonical. Yeah. And of course, different traditions disagree.
Yeah, it seems that whatever the purpose might have been when it was first written, everybody took it and used it for their own purposes and changed it.
That certainly did happen a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, I guess that was basically all I really wanted to know. One more thing is, like, do you think they put, like, I'm talking maybe the New Testament more, that they might have put real figures in there as a way to try to make it seem like it was truth? Like, would they refer to real people, or did they make everybody up, or what?
Well, there are certainly real people that are mentioned in the New Testament, and there are real people mentioned in the Old Testament, too. We have, there's a lot of events, actually, that are recorded in the Old Testament.
All these people are entirely fictitious. Any resemblance to anyone living or dead is purely coincidental.
I wish it were that easy. I wish it were that simple. I really do. There's actually a lot of stuff in the Old Testament that we can verify extra biblically that happened. Now, the thing that we have to remember is that even that stuff, it's all propaganda. Let's put it that way. Every single piece of this is propaganda. They are writing for a specific viewpoint, usually to address a theological issue. So, for example, the Babylonian exile. It is a very well-recorded event in history. And we don't just have the account in the Bible, we have the account of the Babylonians and even the Persians. So we know that the Babylonian exile happened, but all the God stuff that gets included in that, all the theological stuff, that is the interpretation of the early Israelites that kind of helped them get through it. They had to reason, well, like, why would God allow this to happen? Well, they had to come up with a theological answer. They were like, well, you know what? Maybe we just didn't believe well enough. We were worshiping improperly. So the perspective from which that section in the Bible is written on, or those sections are written from, is one of trying to defend a certain worldview. So we do know that that event happened, but of course the stuff that we read in the Bible is a particular interpretation of those historical events. And that's something that we have to realize. Very similar things happened with the New Testament as well. So it's not just made up whole cloth.
No.
Yeah, but at the same time, there is stuff in it that was made up out of whole cloth.
Definitely.
So
absolutely, yeah. But we can't just look at it like all that way. Like just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Can't just do that. It's not that simple. I wish it were.
I guess I wonder, and again, I'm talking probably more about the New Testament. Why, aside from the Gospels, all the different books that are included, like who put them all together and who accepted that they should be all together, you know what I mean? And
right.
They don't seem to always have the same purpose, like all the stories.
They definitely don't.
Yeah.
So the early church would have viewed these texts as scripture, and then eventually they were canonized, because canon is just a closed book of scripture. So this was kind of based on their own personal traditions and what each person accepted. Sometimes church fathers would even argue about what was to be accepted as canon. So, for example, the book of Jude makes an explicit citation of a text that is not in the Catholic or Protestant canon. Now, it makes reference to the book of Enoch, First Enoch, and explicitly cites it. And it cites it the same way that any scripture in the New Testament is cited. So Tertullian, for example, the church father, would actually argue that because of how the author of Jude cites that work, it should be considered scripture, should be considered canon. But obviously, not enough people agreed with him. Essentially, it was a popularity contest over time. It's not like there was one big vote or anything, but it was just what did each community consider scripture, and which ones were popular enough in the end to eventually be canonized.
Okay.
Because every community kind of disagreed a little bit here and there on which text they considered authoritative.
And where do you think that the governments of the countries decided that this was something that they had to let go on, or that they accepted or tried to use for their own purposes? Is it sort of like, because it seems to me that religion is its own sort of government, but, government doesn't want the religion to take over. Like I couldn't see the Romans wanting a religious sect to try to tell them what to do. Does that make any sense?
The thing is, so Constantine, for example, he famously made Christianity not the official religion, because the Roman religion was still very much important. You needed it for the office of Pontifex Maximus. But once you get to the time of Theodosian, a little bit later, the beginning of the 5th century, that's when Christianity became the state religion. And he used it for a lot of reasons, but one of the things he used it for was, of course, to persecute pagans. I mean, pagans weren't even allowed to teach about Christianity. So people definitely used it for, let's call them nefarious acts.
I thought it interesting that it was a 70-year gap, if I remember this correctly. And I'm sure you'll correct me, there was a 70-year gap from the time that Christianity was decriminalized to the time when it was illegal to be anything else.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, that was the gap from Constantine to Theodosius. Theodosius. If I said Theodosian, I'm sorry, I meant Theodosius. They're different people.
So do you think...
Marie?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if that was your question, because we were going to move on to another caller. But if you have another question,
sure.
Go ahead.
No, that's good. That gives me a lot to think about. And I wrote down that one book he talked about too. So it gives me something to look up. So thanks a lot.
It's a very good
Well,
book.
thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, we are. Thank you very much, Maureen. All right, so we are going to drop that one, and we have a theist on the line. Let's see if I
Interesting.
can
All right.
pull that one. Yeah. So I'm going to try to see if that works. Yep. Nelson.
How you
Nelson,
doing?
can you hear us? How you do?
I can hear you. Hey,
Very good, very good.
So my question.
We've got a question in here, so would you read it for us, please?
So, in Isaiah 50, chapter 53:11, I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Right. Yeah.
It says, "The suffering servant will see the light of life after suffering." Doesn't that sound like a clear prediction of the resurrection that was fulfilled by Jesus?
No,
I
not even a
believe
little.
Lorence has a very long video about this, don't you, Lorence?
I do. I think it's about 40 minutes long. So
What's the summary?
the thing is, the suffering servant, as he's so often put in Isaiah, or I'm sorry, it doesn't actually say that in Isaiah. People have just deemed that those songs, the servant songs, where the servant is said to be suffering. When it talks about the servant, it also says the servant has already died. That wouldn't make sense if we're talking about Jesus in the future. So the commonly held belief for the suffering servant is that it's Israel. Now, I personally hold to a slightly different view, but the scholarly consensus is that the servant is a figure meant to be Israel. It's a metaphor for Israel. And that is held by the vast majority of scholars. Some scholars, for example, think it is meant to be Moses. I disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not my view. My personal view is that it's meant to be vague. It's meant to be kind of a stand-in for any believer that is willing to be faithful. That's my own personal idea. It's very similar to the what's his name in John, the beloved disciple in John. I think the beloved disciple in John was kind of meant to be a blank slate. What's the name of that in film, where you have a character that any viewer can kind of impose themselves on? I think there's a name for that. But I think that we see the same thing that we do in the servant songs as we do in the Gospel of John there. But either way, most scholars do think the servant is Israel.
But in Isaiah 53:9, it says he was assigned a grave. Nations don't get buried, do they?
They do when they get absolutely destroyed by especially the Babylonians.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All
right.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yeah,
thank you, Nelson. Okay, so now we've got another theist on the line, and we're going to attempt. Yeah, we're doing good.
But it's so funny is that
Andrew.
before this, Aron was like, nobody's going to call in, right? Nobody ever calls in when I'm here. That's what he said beforehand.
So, Andrew, are you there?
Yeah.
Yay, there's Andrew in New Jersey.
You got a lot of background noise there, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm going to a place where it's not too much noise. Is it good?
It's a little better.
Yeah, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah. I think because I'm a theist. I think the Old Testament and I think it has in the New Testament. I think there are two lords in the Bible.
There are two what?
Lords.
Lords. Okay.
Yeah. So you have the Old Testament God. He seems to contradict Jesus a lot.
Yes, he does.
And yeah, and I think I think a lot of Christians, including myself at one point, we were serving the wrong God. I think the correct God is what Jesus talks about, which is because you know how Jesus, he only did miracles and he only did good works, and he wasn't like the Old Testament Lord. He wasn't like a genocidal, psychopathic lunatic. Even people of his time chastised him for worshiping, for having like a different God. The Jews at the time, they always criticized Jesus, and Jesus would always tell them, "Your father is not my father." Things like that. It's something that I thought I should have done.
Yeah, I mean, in context for the New Testament, the interpretation could be that the Pharisees, especially at the time, had gone so far astray from the original form of the faith that the idea of Jesus as this reformer is just to bring it back to what it was meant to be. Although, I do have to ask, are you a Marcionite?
Uh-huh.
Are you a Marcionite? Do you know what Marcionism is?
Is that like a Pokemon? I don't know what is that?
That is funny, but no, it's not a Pokemon. No, so Marcion of Sinope was the 2nd century heretic. They deemed him a heretic. And his argument was essentially that we don't actually have his works, we only have the works of his opponents. But his arguments were essentially, look how different these two gods are. Surely they're not the same one. And that, this is not a brand new kind of idea. Christians since the 2nd century have thought that, at least some, right? They were often spoken against, right? They were often demonized. But by the way, Marcion of Sinope is actually the first guy that actually had a New Testament canon at all, which I think is interesting. But the thing is, a lot of it relies on cherry picking verses anyways. So you can pick out some good stuff in the Old Testament. There's some good stuff in Proverbs, and even in the Psalms, there's some good stuff. But then you could also pick out some bad stuff in the New Testament, especially Revelation, where Christ brings a sword, where a third of the world is going to get destroyed. So a lot of it does rely on cherry picking verses. But you wouldn't be, you're not so far off though, because if you just look at, kind of the overall picture of the Old Testament God versus the New Testament God, the New Testament God seems a lot nicer than the Old Testament one. So I totally understand your point of view here.
Well, I think when it comes to Revelation, I don't even think Revelation is canon. I think Revelation was added in. Usually when I tell people, like, if they want to get into the Bible, to stick to, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and 1 Corinthians, or Galatians, or whatever, because Revelation, if you read the New Testament of what Jesus says, and then when you get to the Revelation, Jesus turns into a psychopathic warlord all over again. And I think that was added in for political reasons. From the research that I've come across. So
it's not so far off. It was. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Even there were times like in the Old Testament where I remember I brought this up before, where God tells, I think it's Daniel or Isaiah to go and number the children of Israel, and then in another book it tells him that Satan told him to go and number the people of Israel. So
you're thinking
I
of
think
David.
The God of the Old Testament. Huh?
You're thinking of David's census.
Yeah, David. It was David, yeah. And then in another verse, it says how Satan told David to go number the people of Israel. So I think the God of the Old Testament, and then, Old Testament God sent lion spirits and stuff. So I think the Old Testament God was I think the serpent or what they call Beelzebub or whatever it's called. It's I don't know.
Okay, so from what's sounding like, you would agree more with the Gnostics then, at least some version of the Gnostics.
Yeah, I
The
think yeah.
Yeah. So the thing about Satan, right? It doesn't say like Satan as in a name. It says because it wasn't
An
a
adversary.
title there. Yeah, exactly. It means the adversary. So it could just mean enemy, like an earthly enemy. I think Satan as adversary, just meaning adversary, pops up even in the Balaam story. You know, Balaam and his donkey, his talking donkey. That definitely totally happened. The So I totally get where you're coming from, right? But you also have to remember that that ideas of God change over time, all the time, right? Because I'm sure there are plenty of points of theology in the Old Testament that you can say are totally different in the New Testament. And what you were saying about
Yeah.
Revelation, it's kind of accurate, right? Because Revelation took a while to get accepted universally. It wasn't universally accepted right away. In some of our earliest canon lists, it's not there, and in others it is. So there
Yeah.
was debate around it, just to be clear. And I would have to specifically look back into the debate around Revelation for specific views, but I don't think you're the only one who has that kind of feeling, because they do come off as very different God concepts. But it is important to remember that even if you are someone who does accept revelation, you could still fit that into the God concept of the Old Testament. Because in the Old Testament, of course, God destroys everything with water, and he says he's never going to do that again. But there are other parts if you keep reading through the Old Testament, that they do talk about the next what word could I put on it? The next destruction of the world would be with fire, and the imagery's there. I should say that the imagery's there, and then of course we get to Revelation. So the author of Revelation, people who accepted Revelation, also would have viewed this as an extension of that deity. But I completely understand your point of view.
Yeah. Like I don't want to. I know you got to get on to some other calls, but another thing I wanted to say was if you notice how I think when Jesus was in the city, after the city turned against him, and his disciples was like, should you call down fire from heaven, like the past prophets did? And Jesus tells them to be silent, for you do not know the manner of spirit which you have called. So I think when Jesus was doing all the the healing, all the healing the blind, curing the sick and stuff, when Jesus says, I only come to bring life and life more abundantly, I think that is the true Father of what they call the loving Father or whatever. And the Old Testament was a more like a dark God, more like an evil God. That's just my personal belief. I know the Gnostics weren't that popular, but
yeah, they weren't that popular.
right.
Although I think you get a kick out of reading about Marcion. Let's just put it that way. I'm a big Marcion fan over here, so I totally get it.
You were right about God contradicting Jesus often, though. I mean, if you look at Isaiah 45, God declares that he brings good and evil, that it's just him alone. There is no Jesus, there is no Satan, it's just him, and there is no one else. And where Jesus says eventually that he sits on God's right-hand side, God says there's nobody sits by my side.
Yeah, there are some... So I could argue with like the truth of this, but I feel like that's just a longer conversation. However, have you ever read the Gnostic work, The Creation of the World?
What it has something to do with the demiurge and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a little. I'm not too well informed on that, but I read little things here and there, about the demiurge, Sophia, and stuff like that. So I'm not too educated on it. I just know bits and pieces.
Yeah, I feel like you'd kind of fit in that camp, which is very interesting. It's really rare to run into a Gnostic or a Marcionite or anything like that. I'm always pleasantly surprised when that happens, because it's just such a
Yeah, it also talks about
it's so different from what you normally run into.
yeah. Even God even had a wife named Asherah, and
Yes,
that wife was
that's true.
demonized by the ancient Israelites. Asherah is really the wife of the Lord, or well, not the Lord, what they call God Most
Yahweh,
High.
yeah.
The Lord is Yahweh. Yeah, he's the Lord your God. Like when it says in the Bible, because sometimes the Most High, what I call the good God, is talking, and then sometimes it says the Lord your God, and that's the evil God that's talking. So it's kind of confusing.
I mean, there are definitely sections that talk about, even under your view, the Most High referring to the evil one, the evil God, because I think it's in Deuteronomy 32. There's the very long poem, and it does talk about El Elyon, God Most High. That he's very clearly talking about the Old Testament God, not some good one. And then they use the same phrasing of "This is your God."
It seems like they stitch together.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff behind Deuteronomy 32, especially 8 through 9. That I'm not going to get into the arguments too much here. A lot of work has been done on it, and it's very interesting. But I think that some of the questions, like on how these things came together, I would agree that there's been definitely a lot of stitching together, you could call it, of different God concepts, but they all would have been essentially based on the same God concept if we look back far enough. At least the ones in the Bible, they have a root in that. Now, of course, even that God that you could tie it all back to has a root in some other gods, but that's something else. That's something different.
Yeah, well, they all fall under the Canaanite entities. Like I know the ancient Israelites, they worship the Most High under the Israelites worship the Most High under the Canaanites. But yeah, it also talks about God having like 70 sons or something. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that 7 and yeah. But that's basically about it. I just wanted to know if y'all knew about that.
Right, yeah. I'm very deep into it.
Thank you very much for that. And
All right,
surprisingly, we have
yep.
another theist lined up. So, Andrew, thank you very much for your question.
On, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right. And then we are going to move over to, because we do prioritize theists here, and we're going to be talking to Jay.
Hey, how you doing?
Jay, can you hear us? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I hear you better now. You were quiet before, but I hear you better now.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, like my whole thing is I was just calling. I really wasn't once I tuned in, I saw there was a calling line, so I just decided to get on the call. I'm not really too sure what the topic is, but it did ask me if I wanted to suggest a topic, and I put forth like science and scripture, and like trying to find a balance in between the two, because I do feel there is a balance. There has to be. I feel like for every great lie, there's there has to be a lot of truth in a great lie. You understand? And scripture is probably one of those great lies. I think throughout time, it's been used to control the masses. You understand? It's always been just that, a tool to control the masses. It came around after the dawning of kingship. You see, kings already knew what it was and how much it meant to lead and like to have that power. So it makes sense to me that a guy named Moses, from the land of Canaan, has this little congregation. He feels like he's the one. So his plight is to write this book and lead with it and tell you the origins of your life and follow me, because I got the way to God. But it's no different than somebody who wants you to go buy from him. He's not going to send you to his plug, he's going to make you go to him to get to the connection. I'm ranting. I'm sorry about that. How you doing, fellas? Sorry about that.
I'm doing good. Thank you for your thoughts. So I would say that you are absolutely right that historically religion has been used to control the masses. But I would also say that that has not historically been the only purpose of religion. Religions go way further back than anything centralized. We don't even know the exact origins of religion or any particular religious tradition. If you go back to Proto-Indo-European stuff is just really shrouded in mystery because at some point we don't have any documented sources. They're prehistoric. But we know from archaeological evidence that they had some form of religion. We just don't know what the hell it even was. So I would say that it certainly was used to control the masses at many points in history, but it's not the exclusive purpose or driving factor of religion. There are many factors. And from what you said before, Moses, we know, didn't actually exist. And the story about him writing the Torah, it doesn't even say that in the Torah. It is a conclusion that other people have come to, especially rabbis, through rabbinical schools, have come to from putting together other parts of the Torah and concluding it that way. And of course, there are other parts of the Tanakh as well that make it seem like it was all from Moses. But there was no Moses. The Pentateuch, or the Torah, has a very long and complicated history. You can look into I would say the best introductory book I can recommend on it is Richard Elliott Friedman's Who Wrote the Bible. It's based on some pretty old scholarship. So I think the dates are totally off, but I think that he does a very good job of teaching people how to view this text, viewing it as many authors that were put together, or even one writing in response to another, for example, through the hypotheses of John Van Setters. There are a lot of different ways you can view it. But sorry, now I think I'm ranting. I'm the one that's going off. How are you doing, Jay?
I want to
apologize about that. So that makes a lot of sense, actually, man. Like that's taking it all in, and you know what I'm saying. It makes sense, like, because you're basically saying Moses didn't exist. That goes a step further than what I was saying. I was thinking Moses did exist, and he was just running game. Come to me for the word. But you took it a step further. You saying he don't even exist. So I don't know.
Right,
I gotta check out this guy you're talking about, because that just opened up a whole nother can of worms in my head right there. So, but
that's kind of how it is when you study the Bible or religion. It just the what are they called? The holes you keep going down, they're just never ending. And it's really incredible. Yeah. It's also kind of intimidating, not gonna lie. Although I would say that the Moses story only really came up during the 8th century. I think that's when it originated, because at that time we have the Assyrian invasion, and that's when the Assyrians came into Israel, and they invaded. They lived there with them, and they didn't necessarily like it, but they did that. And I think that a time like that makes sense to have a national hero be thought of. In fact, there are, I forget the verses, but there are times in the Bible that have that reference in Exodus story, something like an Exodus story without Moses. And they even reference an unnamed prophet in reference to something like that. So there is a lot to go into, because these texts, when you're poring over them, you always find something new, and it requires a lot of really deep reading, and it is a pain. It really is. But there are a lot of very good books that can help you get you started on your journey into that. And I usually, when it comes to the Torah, I recommend Richard Elliott Friedman's book first, even though I disagree with some of his conclusions.
So basically, you two gentlemen are theists?
No, sir. We are atheists. And that
Okay.
reminds me, Lorence, I had put up a 10 or so common misconceptions about the Bible, and you just discussed one, so I'm going to have to remove from my list where I said that Genesis and the other 4 books of the Pentateuch were all written by Moses himself.
Yeah.
Address
Also,
that one.
funny note on that. I came up with a banger of a joke. I'm writing a script right now on, well, I don't want to spoil it, but either way, I'm writing a script right now for the next video, and I came up with a great joke. Pentateuch, more like Pentateuchus, am I right? And that's the joke. I'll be here all night. Thank you, chat.
Well, you know, it's funny to me because, like, I lean more towards science because science doesn't take sides. It doesn't have feelings. It just deals with data, and that's that. There's no rhetoric in those books and that information. But I do understand that the inner workings of life, like DNA, and, you know, when you write that out, the complexity that goes into that, I don't think that's something that could just happen on its own. Something like the expansion rate of the universe. If it just slows down for just 0.1 second, we don't live. So that goes back to the beginning of the creation of our universe. So, like, you know, we have this vast space that we could look up and see, send these telescopes and see, right? But it's expanding at a certain rate. And if that rate, never mind where we are to our sun and how forces and how things work, if the rate of expansion of the universe ain't precise, we can't live. And that shows me something intelligent. Like, maybe I don't know.
So, have
Maybe I'm wrong.
you heard of the sentient puddle analogy?
Sentient puddle analogy? No, first time ever.
Oh, okay. So, you have a road, and it's just rained, huge downpour, and you have a hole that's just been filled with water, and the puddle wakes up. It becomes sentient, and it realizes where it is, and it looks around, and it says, "Oh my God, I fit perfectly in this hole. It must have been designed for me." Now, I'm sure you realize the issue with that is that the water will form into anything, and it doesn't really matter what shape it is, right? So no matter what this puddle would wake up to find, it's going to say that it must have been designed for me. And I think the point that I'm trying to get across is that we could not have even existed in a universe that was completely inhospitable to us. And the fact that we're here, if we take the sentient puddle as the analogy, we are the sentient puddle. Like, a lot of people will look around and say, "Look how great this is," and, you know, it only could have been this one way, otherwise we wouldn't have existed. And that is true, but something else could have existed, and it would have said the exact same thing.
And I have a question, because my understanding of this is it doesn't concord with what you're saying. You're saying the rate of expansion of the universe, if it was any
Right. I'm pretty
different,
sure
we couldn't live. If
Yeah,
it
pretty sure that's
didn't
false.
expand at all,
Yeah.
if it didn't expand at all, we would still live. If it expanded faster, we would still live. If it expanded slower, we would still live.
If it stopped right
I
now,
don't
we
think
wouldn't
we
even
can
register
live
it
on Earth.
until billions of years later.
Yeah, but I don't think Earth. The scientist says something. I was just watching this the other day. I think it was Neil deGrasse. I'm not sure. They did say that. I visited the planetarium recently on 81st and Central Park West, and some compelling stuff there. And you know, when you see what they say, you understand that that's an intergalactic system. That there is a system out there. There are forces at play. There are things happening out there that we cannot explain. You understand what I'm saying? We cannot explain.
And none of that implies that a God is either involved nor even possible.
It doesn't disqualify it neither, because.
But it doesn't.
You know,
but there's
Right,
nothing to say
just
that
know.
God is even possible. There's nothing.
But you know what it does?
When you can't explain something, it doesn't mean that you can explain it by God, because God is still.
No.
That's just magic. You're saying I don't know, therefore magic.
I think I'm saying. But
correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. What I think you're saying is that there is. I mean, I get the feeling that you have, right? If you look at how incredible the universe is. There is this part of us that can't fully grasp it, right? So we from a psychological perspective, we try to explain it with something else. And now nothing that I'm saying is ever going to disprove God. I don't even have the God debate anymore, because we have been arguing about the existence of God as humans for thousands of years. We have gotten nowhere. So that is not a conversation that or a debate that I even have anymore. But
I'm happy to say that I had one argument with my dad about whether there's a God or not. One, exactly one. He said, "Well, that don't prove there's no God." And I said, "There's no reason to believe in a God in the first place."
Right, yeah.
The
Like
argument
you
was
don't
over
believe in
with.
things until they're proven wrong. So like I could tell you right now that I have a unicorn in my garage. You're not going to go, "Well, I'm going to believe it until someone else proves it wrong." You're going to go, "Well, that's a
Oh, yeah,
ridiculous claim,
right.
prove it."
But if I did show you something complex, like for example, a human being or the DNA strand, the human genome, and certain things, quarks, particles, and electrons, and all the different things that come together to even create existence, and how that comes together, you realize that requires, like, you got to be smart. Like, your best human being can't write out DNA code like that. There's some intelligence in that
I'm afraid not.
So do
usurps a
you
lot of
are you
our
are
best
you
scientists.
are you of the opinion that complexity implies a designer?
No, not that.
No?
I'm saying
Okay.
complexity shows it's not just a rock floating in the middle with nothing. You understand what I'm saying? That shows that there's a little bit
So
more to
yes,
this. It's a system that, yeah.
yes, he
What's that?
thinks that
I'm
if it's
sorry.
complex, then there must have been a mind behind it. When actually one of the hallmarks of intelligent design would be an efficient simplicity, such as we do not see anywhere in biology. Everything in biology is unnecessarily excessively complex, just like you would expect of a haphazard configuration with no intelligence behind it.
I mean, you would something complex. I mean, you would. life is complex. The solar system is
Yep.
complex. Everything
Way more
is
complex
complex.
than it would have to be. Way more complex than a designer would have designed it. Only a haphazard configuration without any prior plan could be so overly complicated for no reason.
I mean, Aron, I'm sure you know a lot more about the giraffe's laryngeal nerve than I do. How poorly that would be. If
Yeah.
that was a designer, it'd be one of the dumbest designs. The fact that our
Yep.
eyes have blind spots. There's just so many stupid designs.
Yeah. All I want to
Sorry.
go ahead,
Go
please.
ahead.
No, Jay, go
Oh, no,
ahead.
I was saying, we adjust. The creation adjusts to the creation, I believe. But what makes me think it through, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna hold you, is consciousness. The fact that, I experience 16 hours of the day awake, and then I get tired, I go to sleep for 8. And the way human beings work, we spend so much time sleeping. We get just 16 hours a day to work and do what we do, and we don't even really know what we are. We're born, we exist, we experience life, but we can't explain it, because that's really what life is meant to be, an experience, not an explanation. It doesn't matter how many near-death experiences or how many hits of DMT you take. You can see the same deities, or all of you. It doesn't matter. But until you actually experience full death, you don't know what comes beyond. So that uncertainty alone leaves room for something else. Where were we before? Where was my conscious mind before? It hadn't formed. Okay, what happened? My brain developed. How did I develop this person, this personality? Like, why am I able to do that over an animal or a lion or something? What is it in me,
You
in my
understand that
brain, and our brain?
lions have consciousness too, right?
Yeah, but they cannot do what we do. They can't.
They're
We
not as
are
smart
the
as
top
we
of the
are.
food chain.
They're not as smart as we
What
are
happened?
on certain things, yeah. But they have
That's what I'm
consciousness
saying.
just like we do. Consciousness, you asked about where it comes from, and consciousness is an inherent aspect of biology. There are unicellular microbes that exhibit the capacity for memory and self-awareness. They have a degree of consciousness. It's nowhere near what ours is. But then there's a lot of
Oh, I
people
know
I know
that.
whose degree of consciousness is notably less than the average.
And also, you can point to any kind of creature and say that they have a trait that other creatures do not have. And you're picking out this one and saying that it's special in some way.
I don't feel like there's any animal outside of the human being that could do what the human being does. It could be a Tyrannosaurus Rex brought back from a billion years ago. It
Well,
won't be able to do.
are there any people who can do what a Tyrannosaurus Rex does?
Oh, but I hear what you're saying. You're talking about one person, like me versus a T-Rex. Of course, I'm food. I'm talking about what humanity can come to. I can build a rocket. I could shoot down a T-Rex. You understand what I'm saying? An ant can't do that. It can't
Yeah,
use this. You understand?
So these animals are not
can't
as
do that.
smart as we are on this one capacity, because we have, out of all of the species that have ever lived, we have the largest brain to body size of any animal. And the development of our ridiculously oversized brains has given us a bit more capacity to understand than other animals have. I grant that. But there is still no indication that a god was ever involved or even possible.
Well, when you look at the breaking point of hominid to current day human being, like there was a point in time, like, evolution, I get it. There was different hominids. Some of them survived. That's how, you get different people now. But
Okay.
DNA itself is something that contains information. You see, it's not like everything contains information in it. It's not like it's just something that happens. It's not like we just predict it's there and like gravity, no, this actually has information. If we knew how to do it, which we're not creators of life, so we can't create DNA, but that's creatable technically. Because it's information. If you just, it's like any other bit of information, you can recreate that
And we
information.
can now manipulate that. And we can now manipulate that and do
No,
designer.
we can manipulate it, but we cannot create it.
That's what DNA is, right?
From scratch.
You use RNA to create DNA, and you can do it autonomously, or you can select orders for your four code, your four. I can't think of what was it? Nucleotides. So you can create codons from any set of from the four nucleotides, and you can arrange them however you want with CRISPR, and you know what kinds of things that's going to be generated from that. But the thing is that RNA produces DNA autonomously by itself, and we know that when you get the genome for great apes, for example, gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees, humans, slight changes in this DNA, slight changes. You have to have billions of letters that are all the same, and then you make a couple of tweaks here and there, and now you've got a new species that results from that. But it still has all of the rest of that genome the same. So when you look at chimpanzees and bonobos, they share all of this original common code with us, right? But again, it's incidental mutations, and they know exactly what type of mutation at what location in the genome does this. No indication that a god is involved. No indication that a god is even possible. So why assume such a thing?
Well, okay. Put it to you like this. We're aware of forces that exist, right? Centrifugal force, gravity, and things of that nature, right? But those forces don't get activated until something puts something in effect to activate said forces, right? I mean,
no.
Here you have, centrifugal force. You got to get on something that's moving a certain way for you to feel that. Gravity,
centrifugal force doesn't actually exist. Centrifugal force doesn't actually. Yeah, it's actually centripetal force that's being misinterpreted.
Yeah, I said it wrong. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
It's a common misconception.
Yeah, but what I was saying was that you see like how gravity works. That's a force, and that's dependent on our Earth's core and how close we are to it versus our whole star. You see, our Earth's core holds us here to the Earth. Our sun holds us where we are in proximity to it. It is a system. There are forces at play, and what I'm trying to say is that even if the creator of all things happens to be a force, that's still something, right? Like even like let's say
Why
like
would
they
you
say
imagine?
the God Paku.
Why would you imagine that things were created?
Well, because there's information in what we are. Like we can
Okay,
when we
so when
break
you
down
say
what we are,
created,
DNA.
you're not talking about like
Well,
creation is creation. You're not talking about out of nothing, ex nihilo. You're talking about taking some thing
yes,
and turning it into a
Legos,
new
basically
thing out of that.
galactic Legos, like basically the elements, the iron and all that, everything that exists.
Right.
There are elements that we have not discovered yet, but those are what I would call primordial Legos. You know what I'm saying? And you take those Legos, like you said, you broke it down very eloquently. You said that to make DNA, you got to have RNA, and there's a process, and one works into the other, and there's four of them. And what I'm trying to tell you is that in order for someone, right? I'm talking about us humans now. In order for someone to try to recreate DNA, the DNA that we know we are because we are it, we can see it, right? In order for a human being to try to duplicate that, it would be like hitting the lottery every day for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? And never missing on one ticket. You understand what I'm
I
saying?
don't
Like it's just
understand. I don't.
Well,
I don't
we're back.
get
Then we're back to the
this.
sentient puddle. But I
someone,
would say
what I'm saying is someone manipulated the process. Someone manipulated the four things and produced DNA out of it. It's not just raw material no more, the
Why
way you
would
broke
you
it down, the
imagine?
RNA.
Why would you imagine that someone got involved where they were not necessary
Something.
to change a thing that can adjust itself? Why did somebody have to interrupt that process to direct it in a way that it would have gone anyway?
Because it wouldn't have, right? You have to.
Why?
You just said it. You just said it. The DNA, the things that come together to make DNA, the ribonucleic acid, all the different things, right? There are four compounds. You just broke it down very eloquently. What I'm trying to say is that you can have the pieces, but if you don't put them together a certain way, DNA don't come out of that. You understand? It takes a very skilled individual. If you tried to task a human being to do that, it would be the equivalent of him winning the lottery every day for the rest of his life off just
Not at
one
all.
ticket purchase. And we know that that's not going to happen. The odds of that happening for a human is not possible.
If a geneticist wanted to create human DNA and do it better, then they would eliminate a whole lot of the junk DNA, because we have only like 5% coding DNA. And then I think we have like a total of 10% that isn't endogenous retroviruses and copies of copies, and due to a buggy enzymatic system and all of that. So we could make a lot leaner and cleaner DNA, but it would still be exactly the regulatory DNA and the coding DNA. We could do all of that and just drop out the 80 to 90% junk. And when I say junk, I know that there's going to be some people that just say, well, 45% has been shown to be, but it's not, it's all, as a geneticist friend of mine put it, this is job security for geneticists. But as far as coding DNA, 5 to 10%, that's it, including regulatory, right? So, and all of this is natural. RNA and mutations do this. And we know exactly what mutations are. What kind of mutations? Was this a missense mutation? Was it a point mutation? What kind of mutation caused what change at what point? There was never any point where anyone had to do anything.
No, I hear you, but a ball won't, like, a dot, a line doesn't start without a single dot. You understand what I'm saying? There's nothing before that line. You understand? It starts at that single point. There had to have been a point in time where everything started, and I'm saying that for
Yeah, that's a
everything.
common argument, but that's not true.
Yeah, it's a prime mover argument. Is
Yeah,
what that
and
is.
and it's not
Well,
even true.
Right. Yeah.
well, okay.
You because you can also ask the question, what would have gotten this, well, let's call it a god for now. I know that's not the label you're exactly putting on it, but just for simplicity's sake, is it okay to call it a god?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay. So this being would be infinitely more complex and amazing than DNA or anything humans can do. Would you then say that because of that, it also requires someone to create it?
Well, no, because it might be a force. It might be a particle itself. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there might just be an element that allows the other elements to do what they do. It doesn't have to be a person. This is why I don't ascribe to scripture, because I see the human behind it. I see the illiterate human who wrote that without having an Einstein in his life to educate him about the true nature and beginning of the earth, because they left out dinosaurs. They left out a vast period of time, and it's not because it didn't happen and God didn't make dinosaurs and dinosaurs are fake. No, it's because the guy who wrote the book didn't have an Einstein like the way we do. And instead of them appreciating that, what they do is they deny that and empower the scripture. So I see the form of control that goes to this day, but stepping away from that, what they call God and Jesus and this and that, that could just be a particle. It could just be a metaphor for a particle that allowed our Milky Way galaxy to exist for as long as it did. You understand? For as long as it does. Because eventually we're going to crash with the Andromeda galaxy and form a new galaxy. That's
right. Yeah.
In our future at some point.
I understand where you're coming from for this line of thinking, not in exactly these terms, but I've heard this line of thinking a lot. And essentially it boils down to something like a prime mover. It doesn't have to be a thinking being necessarily, just something to get it started.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say that it's not necessary, because if we're talking about a time before the universe existed, if we can even say before the universe, we have to understand, or we have to remember, I should say, that we have no idea what that would even be like. We're talking about something that wouldn't be following the rules of time or space as we know them in the universe. So
exactly,
this is where it's entirely hypothetical and everyone's just kind of talking out their ass. I think that if you call, there's Aron, is it Aron Adair? Is that how you pronounce it? He is yeah. I think that he would know a lot more about this stuff. I know very little about nucleosynthesis, and I know a little bit more about Big Bang cosmology, but he would be far more helpful in a conversation like this. He would know far more, because I'm sure that, yeah, and I don't know when the next time he's going to be on the line will be, but if you follow and keep an eye out for Aron Adair, I think he would be someone to have this kind of conversation with, if you're talking about specific origins of the universe.
Yeah, I can help you with biological evolution, but if you want to talk about whether or not the universe had a beginning, and I don't think it did, then he would be a better one to talk to.
That's amazing, and I will take that advice. But before I go, I'll leave you fellas with this. Recently, I saw a report about just that. It's funny you mentioned the Big Bang, because I'm big on that too. Because I feel like scientists won't allude to that for no reason. There must be something to it. I keep an open mind. So, long story short, I saw something about the Big Bang the other day, and scientists found galaxies. Maybe you heard about this. Maybe you can enlighten me about something I didn't know. But they found galaxies, because when you use a telescope to look into outer space, the further you look back, it works like a time machine. It's like looking in a time machine. It's how it was that period of time ago. So long story short, the James Webb telescope caught images of the universe at what would be considered about the 500 million year range of its existence. And in that distance, in those shots that it captured, they caught these like dots that they're like, hold up, this shouldn't exist. I think they were a little too dark and red or something like that. I don't know how they determined it, but they got into it and they realized, hold up, these objects are about the size of the entire Milky Way galaxy as it is right now, which took 13.8 billion years to make, but it's there, we're seeing it. But where we're looking at right now, the universe is only 500 million years old. So how did these galaxies that are so huge, how are they there right now? Like, that's not supposed to be there. You understand what I'm saying? Did you ever hear about this mystery?
I think your numbers might be off. So the universe is like, I think 13 about 13 billion years old, and the earliest pictures of the universe that we have would be, I think it's called the last scattering surface, and I think that's from about 300,000 years after the actual Big Bang, when light could actually disperse. So I think your numbers might be off, but I haven't heard the specific one that you're referencing.
Yeah,
Neil deGrasse Tyson spoke on it recently, and I just this is the one thing that I could definitely leave you with, and this is the biggest piece of my my opinions when it comes to this, is that life is meant to be experienced, not explained. Ultimately, we're curious creatures, but life is meant to be experienced, not explained, which is why you can't know what comes after life until you experience that, and you can't know where you came at before until you experience that. We're here to experience, and that's that. You understand? What comes next and what comes before doesn't matter. This is why I'm against dogma, because all it does is make us kill while we're here instead of enjoying the creation, the existence, not the creation, the existence. Like, we're here to exist, not explain. So, that's ultimately my main point. And yeah, that'll be all. I mean, because we pretty much touched on everything that I was, trying to touch on. I appreciate your time, fellas.
Thank you, Jay.
I think the last advice I could give you is just to keep I can't even talk. Keep exploring. I think that the stuff that you have found out so far is very important, and the thing is, science is always making discoveries. So keep exploring, keep learning. I think that's very important. I'm glad that you're doing that.
I will. Now I'm definitely going to tune in again. You guys got a new subscriber. My sister, my brother Saul, and my sister Rebecca. They're very big fans of Mr. Aron Ra. So that's they're going to be thrilled that when I let them hear this.
Thank you very kindly.
And make sure you subscribe to the Behold Network on YouTube as well.
Behold,
that's me. Behold. You got to say it with some oomph.
Yeah.
Behold.
All right, Jay.
There you go.
Much.
There you go. One try. Perfect.
Fellas, this was a pleasure. I hope you guys have a great night. I'm not going to say blessings because I respect your theism or your lack of theism. I wish you guys well, and I wish you many good days.
Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay, we have 2 atheists lined up. No more theists. We've run flat out of theists. So
that's it. They're all gone.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring in AA. His name is AA. So is it American Atheists?
Or Alcoholics Anonymous?
No, just a different kind of thing. Just where I'm trying not to put my name out there, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Just to try to stay anonymous.
Yep. Good luck.
So I had a question regarding how people's perspectives are, and I always hear when people call in, they're always going off about like how much they can memorize from the Bible, and it doesn't seem to be like a different kind of personal experience that I'm looking for. And it seems that you guys always keep talking to people where they're always just going on about a Bible, or there's either some kind of family member that they were not agreeing with or some kind of thing. And I wanted to see if I have some kind of different perspective on life, because the way I look at life is questionable. I don't know if it's either scientific, philosophical, or like a mixture of both. And I'm wondering if you guys would be willing to see if I'd like to hear your guys' perspective on my story, if you guys would be willing.
That's up to Aron. I mean, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
So,
think we haven't heard your
when
story. Right?
No, I don't think it's a story that anyone's really told or heard. So when I was 19, I tried to join the Marines. And while in the process of trying to join the Marines, I was going to school full time, and I was also working full time at the same time. So I was putting in like 80 to 100 hours, putting into going to for the school work and trying to become a Marine. While in the process of doing this, I was able to actually get sworn in on my 20th birthday. And, you know, I don't think that a lot of people have been able to say that they got sworn in to go to the military on their birthday or anything like that. So in the process of trying to become a Marine or whatever, you have to go through physical training or whatever. And during the physical training, there was an instance where I was supposed to be going into the push-up position. And the next thing that I realize is that I'm on the ground and my face and chest are killing. And then I have 2 or 3 sergeants that are over me asking what just happened. And I told them that I had no idea what happened. So I had to take some time off to get in a doctor's appointment to go see a pulmonologist. And in the meantime of trying to in the meantime of waiting to go see this pulmonologist, I'm looking up things to try to see what could possibly happen. And, you know, there was no answers until I got to this pulmonologist. So there's this test that's like some kind of advanced thing where they give you something called a decongestant to irritate your airways to like mimic like an asthma attack. So during this thing, they give you a scale from like 1 to 5, and it's like 5 is like mild, 3 to 4 is like you know, moderate. It's like 1 to 2 is 5 is like nothing, 3 to 4 is mild, 1 to 2 is like severe, and like anything under that is just terrible. So after I blew into this tube, my results came up at 0.6. And my doctor looked at me and she told me that if I went into the Marines, I would have died. And I can't seem to find anyone else's story that kind of matches or something like this, where it's not a book where I get my knowledge from or someone else's opinion. It's a mixture of thinking about how this instance literally wasn't even my doing, but it also feels like it was my fault at the same time, because it was something that I had that there was no signs of. So my question is, I guess, is that since basically science was the only way that I would have found this truth, it seems that like science to me is like the actual truth, or like whatever, like this God, whatever it is. And I'm wondering like how you guys would see this, because I can't seem to find any kind of like research that's just like, oh, like God clearly made you to have asthma or something. or like whatever is like the equivalent to this. And I'm wondering your guys' perspective, not like advice. I'm like looking for like a perspective, if this makes any sense.
I mean, I would just say that if I were in a position like that, I'd just be thankful the doctors found whatever they did so I could make a more informed decision. A lot of people
I look
don't
at
have that privilege and then they die. So
I look at the
Yeah,
generations, hundreds of generations of people that in a line tracing back, where pick a year, out of any time of recorded history, and people are commonly going to fall over dead from things that would be of complete mystery. Type 2 diabetes. Who the fuck knows what that is 2,500 years ago? There's all kinds of things that would cause people to just drop dead or be unable to function, that nobody would have had any kind of understanding about. And I understand your point about God. I mean, if there was a God, then we would have known about things like like pathogens and infectants and why to wash your hands and that sort of thing. Yep, we didn't get any kind of clues from any almighty.
yeah, it's just I find like, if I believed in this God concept, I'd basically become like Sam or Dean Winchester, and it's just, I'm all set with
Hey.
that kind of logic.
you
And
see this? Do you see the screen?
I'm sorry.
Do you see the screen right now? This tattoo, it's from Supernatural.
No, I can't. I'm actually just on the phone right now, unfortunately.
All right, fair
I'd love
enough.
to see the screen,
It's the mark
but
of Cain. It's the mark of Cain. So yeah, you said Sam and Dean. I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I love that show. I think they did a really good job, except for like they made like, I guess, the Christian God, like the Almighty God, out of all of it. Like they kind of made Zeus like this freaking bitch god in it, and like I hated that thought.
But
like
either way, now we're totally off the rails. So please get back to what you were saying before.
But basically, it's like it's like I try to find something reasonable or like universal, basically, like a universal thought process where it's equal for everyone, and it's not like this like better than you mentality, I guess, because for some reason religion has like this thing where you have to bow to it, I guess, or something. I don't really have some kind of certain ideology where I have to feel like I have to follow it. I feel that it feels like it's trapped people, and it's really difficult to see how that people don't see what the truth it actually is, and they hide behind like something that they're afraid of finding out the truth. Like when I found out about that from the pulmonologist, it was like kind of heart-wrenching at that moment. So
sure,
it's like my identity just completely just crashed. So I had to pick up and find like something completely different. And then even after all these years, it's been it's been fine. Obviously, it's I'm not like freaking like the supernatural thing. I don't need to. I feel like I don't need to like hear someone else's opinions or like read a book that claims like there's a bunch of that's in it when the magic can't even be like backed up, like Noah's Ark. Like this thing is apparently supposed to like have like be like 4 New York cities or something like that, or whatever, how big it is. Like I don't understand why people don't look into the background of like the story, and then they just take it as like the face value because it sounds pretty.
Well, because they were raised and told that you have to believe this or else.
Yeah.
A lot of the time,
that fear thing where I feel like it's like religion has been around for what, thousands of years or whatever. So like there was like either some group of people was just like, it feels like that, like they just did not want to have the same equality for everybody, and then they were just like, screw everybody,
Well, that's
we
why.
just kind of want more than everybody, and it's,
Yep, that's why all these
I don't know,
scriptures
we're,
are focused. All
yeah,
these
and
scriptures are
like they
focused on the
feel like they're
closing
just
rate.
very over exaggerated stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true for a lot of religions. Although because religion itself is such a dynamic social feature, like I said, I think it was to Jay who called in earlier. While religion has been used for a lot of horrible things, especially controlling the
Yeah.
masses, it also developed naturally just from people not knowing how things happened, or people seeing things in their life and making associations that we today would go like, well, we know how that happens. There's nothing magical about it. So
Yeah.
that's how a lot of that stuff kind of popped up. And like I said earlier, at some point, it's just so, it's beyond our discovery. We just
Yeah.
don't know. And
I gotta
that's just for
I gotta
religion
jump
more
in.
generally.
Yeah, I gotta jump in and say we've
Yeah,
got another
like
theist in the queue.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So,
You guys have
we've
to
got
get going.
another
All right.
theist
Well,
in the queue.
I appreciate you guys calling everything.
Okay. Thank you very much,
problem.
AA. Okay.
Thanks, and have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, Lawrence, I'm going to go ahead and jump to this other call right away. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, and we've got Marie on the line from Ohio. Marie.
Hi. I
Hi.
keep hearing that you guys mention that Moses has been unsubstantiated, and I'd really love to get the title of that book so I could read it.
Oh, so when it comes to the historicity of Moses, there's not really a single book that's been written on it because the evidence is so sparse, if anything, if there's anything at all, that you can't really fit it all into a book. But there are plenty of commentaries that talk about this. There is a section in Thomas Romer's book, The Invention of God, that talks about the time period in which Moses was what's the word I want to put on it? I'm going to say invented, but that has a lot of connotations that I would
Would
wouldn't
more
necessarily
likely
apply
be
to the ancient world.
it
There
would also more
are
likely be that I'm sorry that Moses was an adaptation or an appropriation of earlier characters.
I would say it was probably a response to what was happening at the time to kind of give some national pride or national identity in a time when the Israelites were losing it.
Yeah, so you're
That would
talking
be
about
during the Assyrian
you're
invasion.
talking about the exile, right?
No, the Assyrian invasion.
Okay, sorry.
So
So
we
I
covered that one
remember
too on the
there was-
show, Aron.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a number of things like when the Exodus was supposed to have happened, and that the existence of the city of Ramses, and I can't remember all of the details on this, but I remember interviewing a number of historians, Bible historians, who said that they've just given up on there being a historical Moses. It was a nice idea. Everybody held on to it for a while, but that there's nothing to substantiate it, and there's a whole lot that contradicts it. You can't have 100,000 Jewish warriors on foot, and then in addition to that, all their parents and their families, the old people involved. So we're looking at what is it, a 250,000 people at a minimum?
Millions.
When there was
millions of people during the Exodus. And I think one of the that's like the total number of people. But I would say that when it comes to the Moses story, sorry, Aron, just a second. When it comes to the Moses story, the thing that makes the least sense, if we were to take it at face value, there's a lot of stuff that I don't think makes sense, but I think the part that makes the least sense, when they left Egypt, they went to Canaan, right? During the period that Moses supposedly lived, guess who ruled Canaan? Egypt. Egypt ruled Canaan. They were escaping Egypt to Egypt. So I think that by itself shows like an author far in the future who doesn't know that, who's working with the context that he has at his time.
And then when you look at the population again of these people, which the slaves, the Hebrew slaves at that point would have outnumbered the entire population of Egypt. There would be more slaves in Ramses than there were people in Egypt. And if they started out from Ramses to Canaan and they started marching single file, if you just follow the coastline, if you don't get lost for 40 years in the desert, just follow the damn coastline. It's easy. So the first people march out, and they're all 1 meter ahead of the other. Okay, so everybody starts out going single file. What would end up happening is that the first people would arrive in Canaan in a couple of weeks before the last ones left. You would still have a single file line from Ramses to Canaan, and most of the people wouldn't even have left the camp yet. It's completely implausible. The whole thing about the story is completely implausible.
We've also excavated a lot of the region, found no evidence of a migration that big. And I would also say that in the story, their last stop is the city of Kadesh, I think. And Kadesh, from archaeological excavations, we know that no one lived in that area from 2000 BCE to 1000 BCE. That entire millennia, there were no people even living there in their last stop. So this is all, like, to me, this speaks of a later author writing nationalistic propaganda. I know we said a lot there, so respond as you will.
I think we lost her. Yep, we lost her.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, let me see who else is on here. We got an atheist, and a Buddhist. So, just to shake things up, we're talking to Jamie in Pennsylvania.
I'm going to ask if you know God exists, but you know they're holding out on you, like they're hiding or they're not, fixing amputees. How would you find meaning in life, knowing that you're pretty much being screwed over?
Wait,
Why
do you
would I
think
need meaning in life?
Do you think we're theists?
No, I'm just saying, how would a theist reconcile actual proof of God if they realize that that's the implication of it?
So I'm going to give you a trolley answer and the real answer. A trolley answer is they're huffing on copium. They're overdosing on copium. And the real answer is a lot of theists would have different responses to that. And I think, you'd probably have better luck talking to theists individually, honestly, because I can only, tell you what I would think if I were in their shoes. And I don't think that means much.
Yeah, I'm going to try to hurry this along. We got 2 more callers. Lorence has to leave at the top of the hour, so we're going to try to pack in as much as we can.
Yeah, I got to go to work. I'm working until probably around 3:30 a.m. So,
okay. All right, Jamie. Did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, we could talk about Buddhism. I think Buddhism is interesting. I've always said if I were going to be religious, I'd be a Buddhist. So, I think Buddhism's pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know. If you knew a God was immortal and you actually had a record of a God living and then dying, how would that change the idea of faith?
I don't think it would. I mean, faith is believing things because you want to, because you believe in authority rather than evidence. And if an authority tells you this thing, well, then you're required to believe that thing. Doesn't matter what the evidence is.
All right. I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jamie.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So we're going to now jump over to Jace in New Mexico.
Oh, hello.
Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Lovely.
Love it. Welcome in.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I do love Magic the Gathering. Like, Since I had an expert of biblical text, I wanted to ask a biblical text question.
Great.
So I recently, just by happenstance, was walking down the road, and there was a Bible on the road. It was a New Living Translation Bible. Do you have any opinion on the New Living Translation?
I think it's very. I mean, every translation is an interpretation, and that one is not great. But I do love one specific translation from it. It's probably not the right way to translate it, but it's the best way.
But it's the
So
fun way to
Ecclesiastes
translate
1:2, specifically Ecclesiastes 1:2. In more critical editions, like the SBL Study Bible, for example, which is the New Revised Standard Version, the updated edition. Hello, Kitty, come over here. It's translated as "vanity of vanities," and then it continues with the rest of the verse. But the way that it's translated in the New Living Translation is everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. And I love that translation. I put it on one of my t-shirts. So it's probably not the most critical translation, but I do love that specific verse.
Brilliant.
Oh man, that's very different.
Right, yeah. They're trying to give you the meaning of the section, but it is quite funny.
So my question was about meaning, specifically about Luke 14:26. In the New International Version, it says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple." In the New Living Translation, it inserts words into the mouth of Christ and says, "If you want to be my disciple, you must, by comparison, hate everyone else, your father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even your own life. Otherwise, you cannot be my disciple." So my specific question is, is the by comparison, anywhere in there, or is that, inserting things into, into the mouth of Christ? Even the Amplified Bible says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even their own life," then brackets, "in the sense of indifference to or relative disregard for them in comparison with his attitude toward God," and brackets, "he cannot be my disciple," which I thought was very fun.
So we can take a look at it. What was the verse again? You said Luke what?
14:26.
14:26. Let's see. So I'm currently looking at. So this is someone speaking, right? So I'm currently looking at. This is, you can barely see it. This is a Greek text. So let's take a look at it.
It's supposed to be Jesus talking, because them's the red words, as my family would say.
Right. Yeah. The red letters. Let's see. He would not be able to be my disciple. Yeah, there's no comparative words here. I'll put it that way. There's no comparative.
That's adding later interpretation down the line, right? Because that's what I was always told about that verse, because people did bring it up.
Yeah. If someone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, let's see, and wife and children, and their brothers and sisters, and even his own. Well, it says even the word that's used there for himself is his own soul, so his own life, right? So suke is usually translated as a soul, but a lot of translators do choose to use the word life there for the translation. He is not able to be my disciple. Yeah. That's directly from the
that
Greek.
Translating soul to life even goes with Aron's interpretation of like air is spirit and breath of life and like and all of those connections and stuff, like in that context. And like there was a previous caller a while ago now, but there was a previous caller that brought up like almost like a Marcionite understanding of Jesus, and that's what I like almost default to whenever I hear somebody say like, well my religion isn't about like church or like studying the Bible. It's about my personal relationship with Christ or whatever. Like that only reads to me as like some type of weird Marcionite thing, because like then you're throwing out the whole Bible. You're just throwing out the whole Bible for a feeling that you have.
Right. Yeah. A lot of cherry
people
pick.
often bring up hippy dippy, happy clappy Jesus, but in Matthew 10:34 to 36, it says, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be those of his own household." Like, so he knew that. He apparently knew that that unrest was coming at his behest, like, or even desired it, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of which, I am currently writing a commentary, a new translation and commentary on Matthew. So I am very excited to get to stuff like that. I'm currently doing the textual critic work, so like I'm looking at different manuscript variations right now. But yeah, very excited to be getting into more of that stuff, to really delve into the theology.
Not to rush you, but we got 10 minutes left, or Lorence has 10 minutes left. We got one more call, and then we got to do super chats.
Great, yeah.
All right. My only last thing that I'd like to share is a favorite evolutionary example that counters faith positions. Aron has said that before. It's the Darwin fish, like the fish with legs, basically. Mine is whenever people say that being gay is not natural, I bring up the parthenogenic lesbian lizards that live here in New Mexico, where I live, where they are all only female and reproduce parthenogenically and don't change sexes. So
but they require a lesbian
courtship.
Choices. They require a lesbian courtship in order to ovulate.
Yep.
Yep, that's beautiful.
So it's lesbianism or celibacy for you. Those are your options. Them's the apples.
Yep. Thank you, Jace. I'm going to try to jump on to the next call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Okay, so now one last caller. We got Jeremiah from North Carolina.
Hey there, how you guys doing?
It's all right.
Doing good. How are the bullfrogs, Jeremiah?
Doing all right. Thanks for asking. I'll make this quick because I know you guys are short for time. So, longtime atheist. I was born or raised in a very religious Christian household, and I'm a father now, and I have teenagers. And I just had some general questions about faith with children because my kids are naturally beginning to explore and think about and talk about, and I've always been very candid and open about being an atheist and what I believe and don't believe, and I've always tried to support their decisions and ideas on what they do want to explore because I'm the type of person, I have my belief, but I don't try to tell people what to believe, right? Like I try to just let people be who they are and they come to their own senses, if you will. So in question here is my 14-year-old daughter. She's, getting a lot of pressure from different people at school. And obviously there's not a lot of very open-faced atheists around here, where I'm at anyways. And so it's sort of just more of a question of like how to support children with this in an environment that isn't very supporting of that, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you.
Thought.
I think you're doing the right thing, letting them make their own decisions. Like my family's Jewish, but my parents were always very adamant about like when I was growing up, let him make his own decisions. He was specifically, they were talking to like my grandparents who really wanted to push all the Jewish stuff on me, and they were like, let him make his own choices. So I'm very
Right.
thankful for that. But I
I let
would say that in a situation like that where there is a lot of social pressure, I would say that, be open to talking to your kids about this stuff. And, if they have questions, they can come to you and you can give your own perspective.
Mhm.
But ultimately, I do think that letting them make their own decisions until it gets dangerous, of course, like
Right,
if they join a cult or
exactly.
something.
And
Yeah.
she's
But
had pushback because at least where I'm at, it's a very religious area, and
right.
she's told people I'm atheist, and I'm like, you got to be careful with that because you're not truly old enough to fully get the sense of what you're saying to some people, and some people, when you say that word, it's just evil connotations. They don't understand what it means themselves. You know what I mean? And I'm like, because it's not explained to them. They don't understand. And so I've tried to tell her we got to be careful how we use words and make sure that people understand where we're coming from. You know what I mean? And I hate that I have to baby that with her, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, when it came to my kids, I've raised not we've got a blended family. I've got 2 of my biological children and then 3 from my marriage, and I let them do their own studies or whatever. But very often they would come to me with claims that the religion holds that are factually false, and if it's something that's testable, then I would always counter that.
Right.
Like,
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted some insight because I don't have a lot of atheist people here to lean on or talk to. It's a very niche thing where I live, and I have my beliefs, but it's just I try to give my daughter the best that I can, but I know that she gets a lot of outward pressure, and I'm doing basically what you're saying, just trying to be there to be more of a rock and like explain my side of it when she does have a question. Instead of being like, no, religion's bad. I want her to form her own views, but I also want her to understand that there's more than just brainwashing. You know what I mean? And so it's yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jeremiah. Best of luck with your kids in your situation.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. Have a great night.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. You too.
And before we get into super chats, I do want to just let everyone know, go subscribe to the Behold Network. It's where I do all the things. I do a lot of biblical study streams, a lot of translation and commentary stuff, and I'm just starting a series on PragerU. I have a lot of videos planned that I'm currently working on, a lot of bigger projects, one on the Melchizedek episode and what it means to be part of the Order of Melchizedek. Going to be covering quite a lot of stuff. So please, if you enjoyed the calls today, if you for some reason thought that I was interesting to listen to, please go subscribe.
I did see some comments that they wanted to see more of you, so I'm happy to see that. All right, so thank you very much, everyone. Let's move on to Super Chats. Do we have any?
I think I saw some, but
I thought
didn't
we
they
did.
say? Yeah, but didn't they say at the top of the show that actually? Yeah, I feel like I remember.
I had a conversation with
that we won't be doing those.
Sorry, Lux's like remote into my desktop has actually like crashed. So give me a second. I'm gonna get it set up. Lorence, if you have to go, we have a one-up with Aron ready, but we can get a few in while you're still here.
Yeah, I have another 10 minutes. Yeah.
I think we only have 3 right now. So
while you pull those up, I do want to extend my thanks. I have already thanked Aron privately, but I want to thank him again publicly. We had a flood back in August, destroyed our studio. So just trying to bounce back, and I asked if he could get me on the show, and I'm very thankful that he was able to. I'm very thankful that Jimmy and Arden and everyone else behind the scenes were so welcoming. So I would like to extend my gratitude.
Sometimes things freeze up. It'll be so much. Oops, sorry, I didn't realize my mic was on. I'm so sorry.
All right, Lorence, so let's take turns reading them. You start.
All right. Let's see. I got to move the. How do I get this chat out of the way? This is crazy. I opened it up and I shouldn't have. Okay, there we go. $10 from Joshua Everett. Beautiful kitty. is best qualification. Damn straight.
And 10 pounds from Barbara Barrett. No context for you, just money. Thank you.
$5 from Liz. Skeptical Cryptid. What a delightful duo. You both are a pleasure to listen to. Great show. Well, I'm glad someone enjoyed my presence. So thank you.
And then $5 from Joshua Everett. I refuse to answer this poll.
That's right. You stay strong, Joshua.
All right. Oh, my short
that
keys
it?
aren't working. Yep, that was the last one. Sorry.
Wow, that was short.
That's fine.
That's all right.
Okay. All right. Well, Lorence, happy to have you on, and best of luck to you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And again, gratitude to everyone behind the scenes.
Okay. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
No music. No music.
Oh no, is the music not going to you?
I'm not hearing it.
Oh, there is.
We just
I'm also
had a
not
new
hearing it.
audio setup, and we've got a remote producer training in, so it happens. It's crazy stuff. Bad tech. Anyway, thanks everyone.